This is part three of the series. It's currently the final piece I'm recording. I have done a lot more with the OpenAI integration than just the pieces I've shown, but I think these are the most relevant and hopefully can get people thinking about different ways to use the technology and leverage it. And again, I'm using educational data, but you can apply these concepts to any kind of data. Now, with this next piece, and I would say this is probably the most interesting and most exciting piece, what we're going to do is actually use live data from student gradebooks in Blackbaud. So like Blackbaud, PowerSchool, Veracross, they all have an ability for you to set up API access, or maybe with PowerSchool, you're using some kind of auto send process where the data is filtered, pre-filtered, and available for analysis. So, for example, you might not want to scan every single gradebook with your AI. It's not very cost effective and it would be slow, and you're going to be parsing a lot of results and you're going to be handling a lot of characters and a lot of tokens. And remember, these things have token limits. So regardless of how you handle the tokens, like I'm handling massive amounts of data using some, I would say, clever workflows that help me manage the character count and the token limits. And as these models improve, the token limits go up. But as token limits go up, the cost goes up. So models that handle lower amount of tokens per run tend to be a little bit cheaper. So just keep that in mind. Like if you're using this every day as a tool that is part of your business infrastructure or your operational infrastructure, cost does matter. This isn't just a one-off. So you can't get this kind of input and output using the browser. This is something you have to do programmatically to get this kind of speed and to get this kind of data to push back and forth, push and pull back and forth. In this scenario, I have set up using Python. My Python server is connected to Blackbaud. And in Blackbaud, I have an advanced list. And my advanced list already is looking at live grades. And what it's saying is, I want to find all the kids in the high school who meet certain criteria. So I'm already filtering information. So if I were using PowerSchool, for example, I wouldn't pull every single student. What I would do in PowerSchool is I would write something that would create a list of students from live data. And maybe that list would show me students who within the last 2 weeks still have assignments marked as missing or late. Okay, so I'm looking for kids who are having problems, not who are currently a problem. I'm looking for students who are trending down so that I can intervene before they hit the bottom. This is a different approach than just using standard tools and saying, okay, they have an A, they're fine. They could have an A today, and then they could not turn in 5 assignments and have a C. So most teachers will mark things like this assignment's late. They'll put comments in about it and they will flag missing work. So you can use that plus other combinations of tardies and nurses' office visits and all this other stuff to generate dashboards. No one ever looks at the dashboards, and this is part of my overall theory with all this tech. No one looks at the dashboards. I've been making dashboards forever. I started noticing if I took the data in the dashboards, condensed it, put it in spreadsheets, flagged up a few people that needed to look at it, and sent that to them via email or like comments notification in Google Drive, I would get action. But the dashboards, which you can make available for people to look at in their teacher portals, they're just not very effective. And you don't necessarily know if people have interacted with them. Whereas when you send messages to people, a percentage of people do reply back, so you know there's some interaction going. You've sent them a message about information, so you can chat with them about it later. So taking this theory, dashboards haven't been that effective. AI is effective. And AI is effective because it's looking at the data and it's looking at criteria that I've given it. And I've said, hey, What I want you to do is I want you to look at all this data and identify some trends. Okay, so I want to know what it's seeing. Like the reason I ask it to identify trends is I want to know if the AI understands the information. And then, in a nice conversational format, give me a list of students who might be having a problem. You don't want to send personal information into any of these systems. Anyone who's followed any of my earlier videos knows I don't trust any of the security and I don't trust any of the logging. So for daily operation, what I've done is I've encoded the student's name. And so it encodes, goes into the AI, and when it comes out, it decodes. That's all you really need to know. The AI doesn't know. Because I'm doing a video today and I'm going to be showing some of the data, I actually added an extra step where I've manipulated the names. So they're coming out of the system, being manipulated, and then being encoded. If you're wondering how any of this stuff works, I'm not going to go into great detail, but basically, once you set up your API, you can learn how to build applications. There are different models available to use. This model is the one I've been using. You're like, why don't you use 4.0? 4.0 is very expensive. I used it for one day and it was more money in one day than 2 months of using everything else I'd been using. So just so you know, the one filtered list from live gradebooks, so filtered, that's not all the students. So one filtered list from live gradebooks looking for 3 criteria with a population of about 500 students would be about 26 to 30,000 tokens. So you can't just run that much data through the system. All right, so let's kick over here for just a minute. And I've written, this is kind of the final analysis, and this is a prompt. Now, these aren't like the prompts you normally see online. I'm explaining what kind of data it's going to get, and I know it's getting 3 data sets because that's how I'm handling my information right now. This is not ideal because you may have more than 3 data sets. So for this demo, I have 3 data sets, but you would want to make all of this dynamic so that however many data sets you end up with based on the size of your data, this could auto-populate. So yeah, and I'm telling it, I want it to create a summary, and then at the end, I want a list of students. Now, the list of students is interesting. I asked it to give me a bullet list. Sometimes it incorporates that bullet list into a paragraph. If I say list and then show the sample, like I want it to look exactly like this, I can get that. So let's look at some of the output. The structure of how it sends you information is something that you do need to tweak, and it's not going to be perfect every time. It's getting better. So there was one point where I was at about 75%. The information was fine, but the structure, like the output, like what it looked like is messy. Then I got closer to 90%. So let's say I ran it 10 times and 9 times I got this format. Maybe the 10th time, for some reason, the AI would decide to like summarize it in bullet points or in a numbered list. I've had that happen, but it doesn't really matter because the information is still actionable. But it's live data, and if there's ever any question about whether or not this data is live, like if you're not really sure, like, hey, is he really pulling live data? Happy to do a call and show you how that works privately. All right, so overall analysis of the 3 data sets, you can scan through this. And then I've asked it to list the students, and it's like, these students have consistently received lower grades and have shown a lack of improvement across multiple. So what you want to do at this point, the whole point of this is this email theoretically could go out to a group, and that group might be all the advisors in the high school. School information systems, unless you go in and manipulate them, only show you your students and the grades for your class. Now you can make reports, which I've done, that show all the students and how they're doing in every class for an advisor to read. But if an advisor has 18 to 20 students and each of those students has 6 courses, do the math, that's a lot of data for them to look at 2 or 3 days a week. However, if they get an email once a week, maybe Wednesday morning, that says, here's a list that we've determined in the entire school need your focus, and they see their students on it, they can do a deep dive however they want. Do they need to use data? No, they can just have a conversation. We're not directing the solution, we're just providing the information. And we're providing it in a chunk that people can use quickly and immediately and in a medium that is comfortable. I have one of these prompts that just lists kids who are missing work. That's all it does. These kids are missing work. And that one just makes a list of students. That's all it does. It just makes the list of students and the subjects that they're missing in, so that you can see if you have a subject trend. That information was very helpful, and those students, their workflow normalized. So that's just one example of ways to use this type of data. Anyway, I hope that you think this stuff is interesting. I certainly do. I think it's interesting. I think it's valuable. I think these AI tools deployed properly with the right level of security can benefit early intervention in a lot of ways, and data analysis, obviously. And I also think engaging people with feedback and with content that's easy to read and digest is significantly more important than having a massive dashboard with all the information that very few people can process. If you're interested in knowing more, reach out to me, contact me, either via LinkedIn or contact links that I will put on YouTube that are under these videos. Thank you.